Hi everyone. This is the second game of the Sveshnikov Sicilian, and the first game I already posted about the Sveshnikov with the Bishop G5 line. This is the second game, like I said, and this game was played between two great grandmasters, Alexei Shirov with the white pieces and Garry Kasparov with the black pieces. So the game is going to be very wild, as it was played by Garry Kasparov and Shirov, and also after all, it's a Sicilian opening, so that is very obvious. You will get to see very fighting games. So yeah, let's get started with the game. And here, like I said, e4, c5, the start of the Sicilian. Knight f3, the open Sicilian on the board, and now knight c6. The classical Sicilian. d4 makes sense. He takes d4, knight cross d4, and now knight f6 attacks the pawn. So knight c3 to develop a piece and protects the pawn. Now we have the Sveshnikov move, that is pawn to e5. This is the Sveshnikov Sicilian opening, and here this knight is under attack, so the knight has to be moved. The knight goes to b5, looking at the d6 square, so the only way to stop the knight from coming on to d6 is to play the pawn to d6. Now, as I said, this game is about bishop g5 line, so we have bishop g5 already. And now a6 attacks the knight. Knight has to go back. Okay, here bishop, one novelty is there. Bishop cross f6 first, and then we can go back. Here knight a3 was played by Shirov, and Kasparov played b5. These all are like completely theory. Like all these lines are completely theory. Like there is nothing, no tactics, nothing sort of complications are there. So here we have okay. First. Initially, like when once you see this position as white, you might want to play knight d5 because obviously the b4 is coming, so you want to get rid of this fork. And another sideline was played, and in this game Shirov goes for it. Bishop cross f6 first. Before playing knight d5, he is giving up the bishop for the knight, and here instead of taking with the queen, Kasparov take with the g pawn, g cross f6, and now only knight d5. This is also a line like where white first destroy the pawn structure on the king's side and then play the knight to d5. Now we have pawn f5. This is a very principal move because it's your pawns are double, so it makes sense to get rid of your double pawns. And therefore, obviously, taking on this thing, bishop will simply take back. So here, yeah, this is the position, and I wanted to say something like in this position, you might play something like normal move bishop e2 castle, or maybe pawn c3 knight, pawn c3 knight c2. Like you can plan something like this, but there is a move that white played here, and it's none other than the sacrifice move, or complete piece sacrifice right in the opening. You will see bishop cross b5. Look at that, simply giving up a piece right in the opening, but the compensation are there. The compensation will be there for white. I'll show you how. A cross b5 was played, and now knight takes b5. Now look at these two knights. Just looking at the c7 square, so this threat is of course coming, and you really need to stop it. And the only way to stop is to move the rook away, because you don't want to keep your rook here, obviously, because this check will come and you will lose the rook. And you don't have the option of doing immediate castling. So here rook a4 was played. Now, why not rook a5? There is a line that you must think, okay, why not rook a5? Rook a5 is not a great idea because if you immediately play rook a5, then I'll show you a line. Knight check will come. King has to move, go to d7. That's the only square. And now queen to h5. Look at that. So this position is completely busting up for black, and you don't want to play right away in the opening. Rook a4 makes sense. Rook a5 not that. Rook a4 makes sense. Why? Because you are looking at the e4 pawn, and that comes with a check also. So here b4 was played. Now this move has its own uniqueness because mostly it was played the Latvian grandmasters have played this move a lot of time. Like when the database was not there, and the database don't have those games where these kind of moves have been played. And this first time, here white has the good compensation for the piece. In the former Soviet Union, the inventor of this b4 move is a Latvian grandmaster, and his name is Latvian master name as I think Elvis Vitolinish. he was the first one to play this move in this position, and that is why after that many Latvian masters followed this opening and followed this move, and so we can say that this move is a Latvian variation of Sveshnikov. So yeah, let's see how the game continues here. Here we have queen to h4. This is the move. Now again looking at the e4 pawn with a check, and it's very interesting, like how you will how you're going to deal with this move. There is not a good way. And here in the game, castling was played, and now rook g8. It makes sense because the king is here, so and you have a semi-open file, so it makes sense to bring your rook into the file, and this rook will be very useful for the future attacks. And so yeah, this is the position. And okay, after this, it's white's turn. Okay, white has a move here, which actually kind of forces a draw, and the move is pawn to c3. Now, okay, it makes sense that you are opening up an attack on the rook, but now black has a chance to draw the game. Like I will show you the line. This variation is very interesting. f4. You gave up the rook, and now we have rook cross g2 sacrifice. Look at that. This will come, and now queen g4, queen f3 check. Only move king g1, and now queen g4, just repetition, draw by repetition will be there. So yeah, c3 is the one of the way to play, but here Alexei Shirov is a very attacking player, so he goes with pawn f4. He is not satisfied with just a normal draw. He wanted to fight. So pawn f4 was played, and here we have king d8. Now why king d8? Because the reason is you want to play sometimes at rook. You want to bring your rook back to, whenever your rook gets attacked, you want to make it back to a6 or a8. And you don't want, let's say if c3 comes and you move your rook back, then knight c7 comes with a check and picks up your rook. So that is why king d8, simply removing the king out of any kind of checks, so that the knight will never give this check. So yeah, so here now c3 was played, attacks the rook, now rook a6. Now look at that. Now you will understand why king d8 was played, because now knight c7 will not come with a check and pick up the rook. So we have a4. Now white is trying to expand on the queen side, maybe finding some counter play, and because he has sacrificed a piece, so it makes sense. It makes sense that you really wanna go for some counter play. And also this move helps white to play this rook over here to guard with the to look after the g2 square, because you already see the black has already played his rook on the g8. Maybe there will be a lot of pressures on the g2 square, so it makes sense. So we have now pawn cross a4, like Kasparov just took the pawn on e4. We have pawn f5. Now pawn f5 simply blocking the bishop's diagonal, this diagonal, the c8, the c8 and h3 diagonal. So what do you do about this bishop? Obviously you can't play to e6. Usually in this opening, this bishop goes to e6, and sometimes b7 also. Like in the previous game, Vidit played bishop b7. So here also Kasparov played bishop b7. Now look at that. Once the bishop comes to b7, there is a lot of pressure against g2 square. In some lines, this diagonal is getting opened up, obviously, because it is completely under black's control to open up this diagonal, because there is two pieces of black and only one piece of white. So maybe black can plan something like pawn e3 and removing this knight, and this knight will remove. So there will be a lot of pressure on g2. So here Shirov immediately played rook a2. Makes sense to guard with the second rank. And now we have e3. Now starting to open up the diagonal. Now we have, and giving up a pawn also. Now knight cross e3. And now once this knight comes here, this knight is also now protecting the g2 square. So makes sense to take the pawn. Here we have queen e4, creating another attacker on the g2 pawn, and the bishop is already there. But for the moment, this pawn is enough guarded, if you see it. But we somehow, black somehow wants to remove this knight, and he can play it. He can do it by playing something like bishop h6 to remove that knight. So we have rook e1. He played rook e1, so makes sense. Maybe first of all, the threat is not a threat, but putting the rook in the same file where the queen is, and also maybe the rook can join the defense of the g2 pawn. Now Kasparov played a very interesting move, and I must say that you really want to solve this, and you really want to find a good move here. He played simply knight cross b4. since white has already given up a piece, complete piece, so it makes sense to, for the sake of opening up the lines, you can really give up the pieces also. So we have c cross b4, white took the knight, and now we have bishop h6. Now trying to remove one of the defender of the g2 square with the bishop e3 move, bishop h6 move. Now what do you do? Like this the next move, this is coming, and then there will be a lot of pressure on the g2 square. So Shirov played king h1, removing the king out of the hunt, and maybe now he can plan to play rook to g1 also to guard the g2 square. So we have bishop cross e3, and taking on it doesn't do anything. Okay, any other move that you can try to play, something like knight g4, then it's completely winning for black only, because now we can simply take it. And now what do you do? Like you are down a piece. You are now, again, these two bishop pairs are really very great for black to win the game. So you can't really move this knight anywhere. Moving the knight here, I must say that you can find the move because of checkmate. And where else the knight will go? There is okay, let's say knight goes here also, knight c4, let's say you try, but then rook into g2 check will come. Now what do you do? If you take with the rook, then we have checkmate, and if you go something like this, then we have rook e2 check, it's a double check, and now it's a checkmate. And anything else, let's say you try something like this, maybe king f1. Now what do you do? Here again, it's white to play, black to play, and black is completely winning. Feel free to pause the video, and the move is, of course, queen takes f5. Now the king has nowhere to go, the rook has to block, and now this is checkmate. So this knight can't really move. After bishop h6, there is no way for the knight to move, so he played king h1 to maybe using this g1 square for the rook to further protect the g2 pawn. Now let's see next what happened here. Here he played bishop cross e3. Obviously it makes sense, you are getting a free piece, so why not take it? Now queen e2, pinning the bishop, because okay, not exactly pinning the bishop, but creating some defense on the g2 square. Now we have rook c6, trying to bring the rook also into the game in some lines, and maybe this rook can come here also. And this obviously it is a very logical move. You know why? Because it is the open file, so it makes sense to bring your rook to the open file. If you don't see anything, if you don't find any tactics, so just you can play a very principal move, bringing your rook to the open file. That's it. Now we have pawn a5. Again, white is just trying to play something on the queen side only. It's just trying to create some counter play and hoping that if black do any mistakes. But obviously it's Garry Kasparov, so you can't expect any mistake from him. So we have queen cross b4. Just took the pawn, one more pawn, and now okay, you can try to take the bishop, but can you? Like if you take this bishop on this thing, now we are going to take this knight also. Now this position again, we are up a piece, and it's completely winning for black only. So here he tried knight cross d6. He just took this thing, and now we have rook cross d6. Now queen cross e3. But again, by doing this, there are some the threat is alive. The g2 square. What do you do about it? He played queen d4. After this, queen cross e3, black played queen d4, and offering a queen exchange, because it makes sense, you are up a piece, and now the pawns are also, white doesn't have a lot of pawns to create some counter attack. So here white simply declines the exchange. Queen c1, planning to play rook g1 also. Queen d5, again create pressure on g2. So rook g1 is forced here, you can't really do something about it. And now the move that you have to find is okay, once not only creating the g2 square, but also you are looking at the a2 rook. And if you try to play something like this to protect the rook, and then this also. Now okay, white to play, like not white to play, but black to play. Find the correct move. What you do? The move is, of course, rook cross g2. And if you take it, then bye bye to the queen. Look at that. Or here, or maybe you can go to b3 also. This is the absolute pin on the board, and you simply lost the queen, and now this, as well as the game also. And so yeah, that is the thing. And so after this, like queen d5, he played rook g1 to save the g2 pawn. Now I think that okay, it's completely saved, but he lost the rook. And okay, he tried one move, queen f1, but here very good finish by Garry Kasparov is rook d2, creating again more pressure. So it's a very logical thing, very principled thing, creating a lot of attackers on the pawn. And now look at that, 4 attackers are there, 3 defenders are there, so it doesn't make sense. So here White simply resigned the game. So yeah, this was the game about bishop g5 line, and the next game will be about the knight d5 line. 2 games I will be posting that one. So yeah, if there is anything, you can just feel free to share your opinions on the comment section, and I will review that thing. So yeah, that's the thing.